You're a mess. It's so humid out.
You want to talk about humidity? I once.
Problem is that if we record something that has copyright, then
Rion, there is a phrase from the Old Testament where a person asks, "Am I my brother's keeper?" I'm sure all of you know the story of Adam and Eve. They were the first people made according to the Old Testament, created by God. And God gave them the whole of the most beautiful world. He said, you can take whatever you want, have whatever you want. But don't touch the fruit of this particular tree. So out of hundreds and hundreds of fruits, the Eve, who was the woman, was very curious. She went and looked at it, and on that tree came a serpent. And the serpent said to her, "Why don't you eat this fruit? It's an apple." And she said, "No, we are not supposed to eat that fruit because God said don't eat it." So then the serpent said that that's because he doesn't want you to be intelligent like him. He's afraid that you will be a competitor. Just have a taste. So Eve did not listen to God. She listened to the voice of temptation, that was a serpent, and she ate the apple. Now, this was the lack of faith that she had. If you have a very good friend who has gone ahead to create you, one would think you will have a little more faith in that being, whoever it is. So then she takes the rest of the apple back to Adam and she says, "Come on, let's just taste this. You know what? We are going to be more intelligent than God is." So he was enamored of his wife at that time and he said, "Okay," and he bit it. And then they heard the voice of God that says, "You didn't trust me enough. I was trying to teach you something. Be like the apple tree. You don't have to say, should I be like this? Should I be like that? You just be as you are, and I will take care of everything. I've given you paradise." Now, the same thing happens to us because sometimes we are told by our conscience, by our elders at times, by our schools, by our value systems in the culture, don't hurt somebody. But then we don't hurt somebody at that age, and then we grow up and we become either wealthy or we become very powerful or we become people who have beauty and therefore people are attracted to us, charisma. And then at that point, we don't listen to that inner voice which says, don't hurt somebody else. What do? We think we have to reach there first. Even on the spiritual quest, we have to reach there first before anybody else. And how do I do that? By pulling down the other person. So this is in fact what I'm trying to tell you. Let me go a little into the story of the boy who said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" He is in all of us. When somebody is in difficulty, now because of this terrible difficulty of COVID, we see people slowly putting out their little tentacles to help the other person. Otherwise, in general, we had this feeling as human beings that we were the superior races, and everything in the world was created for our own comfort, satisfaction, something we have to master, control, damage, destroy, so that we can be happy. This is the opposite of Ahimsa. It is Himsa. So what happened, just like the samskara of the mother who did not have enough faith, Adam and Eve had two children. One was Cain and one was Abel. Cain was an agriculturist. Abel was a shepherd. So when the day of the festival came, and that was a tradition always in the East and perhaps in the West also, because I don't know many of the rituals, that on a day of festivity, before you ask God to give you something, you are so grateful for what you have received in that time that you go and give an offering of something that you have, which you like very much, as a way of gratitude. Even now you have this, the watered down aspect of it. Somebody calls you home for a meal and you take either a bottle of wine or a handful of flowers or some little gift. You just don't go eat and come away as if you're entitled. You have that in the West. So the same way, these two wanted to give an offering for the festival, and it was a ritual in those days. So what happened is Cain accepted the ritual aspect of it. He got a few fruits from the ground because he was an agriculturist. He was working with the ground. But what did Abel do? He went and searched among his sheep, and the newly born best sheep, lamb, he took, something that was very precious to him, and then he took it to God with love. Now, God, Yahweh, is called in the Hebrew tradition. He accepted Abel's, but he didn't accept Cain's offering. So Cain was upset. So then Yahweh asks Cain, why are you upset? If your offering was good, it would have been accepted also. There is a sin waiting at your doorstep, and you have to transcend it. In other words, what was the difference? What would God know? Cain has brought something from his ground, what he worked for. Abel has brought something from among the sheep that he worked for. But the divine does not look at the offering. He looks into your heart. And he knows what is your intention in giving it. Are you giving it with love, or are you giving it because it's a ritual? That is why you'll find sometimes people will have if you look at the puja rooms on festival days, you will have all the best fruits, all the best clothing, everything will be very beautiful. It's almost like a theater stage. But Krishna says in the Gita, Patram Palam Pushpam Toyam. Give me just a leaf. Give me just a little fruit. And if you can't do that, give me a flower. If you don't get a flower, give me a little bit of water. What is that water? The waters are the tears that you shed, saying, I cannot give you anything. I don't have anything, but my heart is here. So Krishna, that's all you want. You don't have to make a big production of what you offer to the God. So it's the same thing when God, Yahweh, tells Cain that if you had given it in the accepted way, the appropriate way, then I would have taken yours too. But why didn't Cain do it? Because he just did it as a ritual. He did not in his heart say, Lord, I'm so grateful to you. I want to give you something. Like we tell people we love. So he tried to teach Cain. He said, there is sin waiting at your doorstep. Sin means you're missing the mark. There's something more to it. He says you have to go beyond that missing the mark so you reach the goal. But what did Cain do? He could have been receptive to the divine voice and said, where did I make the mistake? What was it I lacked? He could have learned from his mistake. Instead of that, he was so jealous of his brother Abel. He took him to the field, and in the field, he killed his brother. Abel died. Then Yahweh asks, where is your brother Abel? He hears this voice. And Cain said, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I supposed to know? It is, in other words, say, it's not my responsibility. How would I know where he is? Don't we hear this all the time in the world? Do you know where your brother is? And I say, I don't know. He was somewhere around here. I don't care. I don't know. And Yahweh says, your brother's blood cries out from the ground. And this ground that you have tilled will not yield you anything. You will become a vagabond and a wanderer. And Cain says, no, because people know I've done it, they will kill me. And he says, no, don't worry, I'll protect you. People won't kill you because I'm protecting you, but I will set a mark on you. So people will know you have done this. And you will have to suffer guilt and remorse till the end of your life. Now, it is not necessarily that God gives a curse. This is how it happens naturally. So what is this? For various reasons, we hurt another person. And not just hurting another person, we hurt ourselves. Our bodies are made of the Pancha Mahabhutas, the elements. And we don't respect it. We don't think this body has been given to us so that we can learn a lesson and move towards the divine. We try to make this body more and more special by either giving it power, by getting more people on our side, making brownie coins with other people, or we give them gifts, things that pamper their own ego so that they will pamper us, or we become powerful people, and in that power and arrogance we think we can handle anything. And today I think this lesson of Ahimsa is so much more relevant because all it needed was one little virus to bring the world to its knees. What is Ahimsa? All living beings have prana. We know that. We all know that. Everything has a life force. This life force, this vitality is called prana. When the prana leaves, the body becomes dead for everything. Now, this prana is a divine gift. We don't realize that. We take it for granted. It's a divine gift. And when you have prana, which is a divine gift to you, to me, to the tree outside, to the people, strangers in other countries, people you don't know, then what happens is we are breathing the same prana. And here they say, it is, if you know that, you will not hurt another being, because when you hurt somebody else, you are hurting the prana of that being which is also flowing into yourself. So you are hurting yourself. So this is the core knowledge of Ahimsa. I'm going to tell you a few more things about Ahimsa, and it's not going to be what you will be writing for an examination or talking. For that you can, plenty of people will tell you about what Ahimsa is, but I'm going to give you a different slant on that. We often think that Ahimsa is the first yama among the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. But we have to know that the word Ahimsa is not specific to yoga. In Jainism, it is called the Mahavrata, one of the 5 Mahavratas that is necessary for moving towards your own interior divinity. In Buddhism also the same thing is said. Even if somebody cuts you into pieces, do not fight with them. The Buddha says. Why does he say that? Not because he says you go cut yourself, let somebody cut you and that's the end of it. Because when you are cut and you're able to forgive them, you will find your own soul cannot be cut. That is what Krishna says in the Gita. The Atma cannot be wet with water. It cannot be cut with a sword. It cannot be burnt by the fire. It is immortal. That is the divinity within you that every being has. Now, there is a golden rule in Christianity, and that says, do unto others what you would that others would do unto you. That is, don't do something to people that you wouldn't like somebody to do to you. Which means not just keeping it as an academic concept, but also to get to know the other person, get to know the other being, not just a person, the plants, the trees, the animals, the birds, get to understanding them from their perspective, not from our perspective. So get to understand them. And how do you get to know something? When you love something, you want to know more. When somebody doesn't matter to you, you don't want to know more about them. You don't go into the street and look around to say who you can know something more about. You want to know more about the person you're in love with. The person can be your father, your mother, your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, child, guru, your best friend. And eventually you will realize that all these beings share the same prana as yourself. And when you go to the core of each person, each being, you find the same core that is in you, that person is as divine as you are also. And then you have in the Mahabharata and Ramayana a lot of debates about ahimsa. What do you do about hurting somebody else when you're faced with a war? You sit back in a war that is attacking your country, and then you say, okay, come and invade us. We won't do anything. We won't fight with you. Or in situations where you need self-defense, or in situations where you have to, in the position of a judge, you have to convict a person who has murdered a few people. What do you do at that time? Do you say, I'm going to practice ahimsa? I've seen these doubts coming up so often in people's minds. So I think we should pause for a little while and think about this whole concept of ahimsa. One of the best places, the whole of the Bhagavad Gita was centered around ahimsa. Here is Arjuna. He has seen a lot of negativity happening, not just to his family, to all the good people he knew who were being harassed and tortured by people who were his own cousins, who were good friends, family people, and then they went on the wrong path. Now you'll find many, many characters in the Mahabharata, some of them siding with a person who could be a terrorist by today's descriptions, but saying he's my close friend, he did so much for me, how can I let him down? So you support the terrorist. And then you think you're not creating hurt. But then you take on the karma for a whole culture and cultures to follow, which will be tainted by that one thing that you could have done, but you did not. Keeping quiet when you could have changed the situation, and not just for your personal desire of being friendly with somebody, that you did not open your mouth and stand up for the right. So when Arjuna comes to that point, he had agreed to move into this dharmic fight, this war of Kurukshetra, to set justice back on the world, to help Krishna in the dharmic war. But the minute he went there and he saw his friends and family, it was a sense of anguish. It's what's called an existential anguish. Suddenly he felt he couldn't go ahead and do anything. His palms were sweating, his limbs were shivering. And he just threw away the bow and arrow, and then he said, no, I can't go to this fight. These are my teachers out there, the people I've respected, my elders who have brought me up, my close friends, my cousins. How do I go and kill them? Isn't that ahimsa? Isn't that himsa? The opposite of ahimsa. And then the whole of the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna explaining to Arjuna in various ways as to the core of what is ahimsa, which we'll come to a little later. So you have in the 18th century BCE, Parshvanath, a Jain, the word Jain comes from Jina. Jina means one who has won over mortality, moved into immortalness, realized the mortality of his body, identified with an immortal part of himself. So Parshvanath used ahimsa as one of the 4 Mahavratas. In the Vedic text, again in the Rig Veda, you will find Satyam and Ahimsa brought together in a prayer to Indra. In the Yajur Veda, they'll say, may all beings look at me with a friendly eye. May I do likewise. May we look at each other with the eyes of a friend. In fact, in the 18th century, the Yajur Veda refers to Pashu Ahimsa, kindness to animals. The Chandogya Upanishad in the 7th century BCE says one should not have violence against anything because all creatures, sarva bhutani, all creatures, that is all those are in creation, all of them are you. It's part of who you are if you go to your core of what you are practicing. And if you practice ahimsa, you will not have to come back to the world again and again and again, born and die, because that is the lesson you have to learn before you are entitled to go into the presence of the divine. So what are the qualities? It says you have ahimsa first, always, ahimsa, satyavachanam, truthful speech, arjavam, sincerity, danam, when you give to somebody else, generosity, that is tapas, where you take on a voluntary asceticism so that somebody else, some other creation of the divine can be benefited, not for yourself. Again, in the Shandilya Upanishad, you will have ahimsa, satyam, asteyam, integrity, brahmacharya, walking on the path of truth, daya, kindness, arjava, sincerity, kshama, forgiveness, dhriti, mitahara, little and decent food, healthy, saucha, cleanliness. That cleanliness not only of the body, but cleanliness of the mind, cleanliness of emotions also. Total avoidance of harming any being, not only by deeds, by words and thoughts also. Why? Because the minute we think something nasty about somebody else, say for example, somebody gets into a gossip and this gossip creates a vibration. You get a vicarious thrill out of seeing somebody pushed down. And this is what we see in today's social media all the time. Either somebody is against the Prime Minister or somebody is against the opposition. And the people are so excited this way and that way, depending upon their ideologies, that the media gets a better selling of its material that it is trying to market. In the Mahabharata, it said, Ahimsa paramo dharmaha, the greatest dharma, is the highest self-control. Ahimsa is the greatest gift. Ahimsa is the best practice. Ahimsa is the highest sacrifice. The paramo yajna, param bhalam, the finest strength. Param mitram, the greatest friend, ahimsa. Param Sukham, the great comfort. Param Satyam, the finest truth, the highest truth is Ahimsa. The highest teaching is Ahimsa. So Shastras say those who practice Ahimsa can and must do when faced with war, a violent threat, or a need to sentence someone convicted of the crime. You have to do what you have to do. But you do not do it with hatred. That's the difference. When a judge sentences a murderer to life imprisonment or whatever it is, he doesn't hate the man. The man knows the law of the land says that if I murder somebody, I have to face that much of a sentence. He has brought it upon himself. The judge can be impartial. He has a duty not only to the murderer, but he has a duty to the rest of the created beings in that culture. So it's his responsibility as a judge to protect the rest of the people. And in that protection, he might have to give a sentence that has been agreed upon by the rest of that culture, that this is what will happen to somebody who murders somebody else. So all these are in the realm of Ahimsa. So because you cannot be naive and sit inside and say, oh, the COVID is here, but God will protect me because I've always been nice to my neighbor. I don't believe in allopathy. I don't believe in Ayurveda. I believe in yoga. I don't believe in taking a vaccination. All this is there. Am I my brother's keeper? That is what it says. In other words, the person who is afraid of dying of COVID will not follow the rules of the state or the um, medical doctors, let's put it that way, because these are the people who are working in that particular field. A carpenter will know all about wood and the tools and how to make it and how to break it and how to put it together. A mason will know about how you put the bricks together, which brick you put in what way, and what you use to bind them together to build a home. A carpet maker will know about carpets. A medical person will know about healing the body and mind. Now, you go and ask your great grandmother, what will I do? What can I do? And she says, oh, in our time we had this, we used to do this. And you say, I go by the tradition. You're not keeping yourself, what do you say, in touch with what is happening later than that. The world didn't stop with our grandmothers. The world didn't stop with even our sages. If you look into the lives of our sages, you will find every mystic came to revive the old order. Everyone said, I haven't come to break it, I'm coming to revive it. Why should it be revived? Because it has become a dead tradition within us. And they revive it so that we see it in the way we are supposed to see at a particular point of time and keep things alive. Not to kill our minds with our ideologies and prejudices and biases and say, am I my brother's keeper? You don't realize that if you don't take a vaccination, it is not like in the old days when you had a typhoid, you took your injection or treatment and you died or lived according to your karma. But now you are responsible for infecting a whole lot of other people. So that is the responsibility that one has to take, because every other being is you, shares your same trauma. So you have to understand the world is not free of aggression, and ahimsa is not pacifism. Ahimsa is a certain vibration within a person who has experienced that oneness, and that neutralizes the aggression of the attacker. That is why in the old days, sannyasins, even today, they will tell them, take a fruit diet, because You want to practice not even harming plants. So why in yoga is the first thing called yama and niyama? Before you put your head on the floor and let your feet go up and your arms to the side and doing all sorts of glorious elastic um, practices. That is what Swami Satyananda used to say. Do you want to be a glorified rubber band? And people think sometimes I'm not for asanas, but no, I'm one of the few people who have a tremendous respect for asanas. But asanas as they are and not as ego boosters. So, and which is the way the Bihar School of Yoga works also. You will not see very many people in Swami Satyananda's tradition who will be out there putting their themselves or their children on the WhatsApp in any number of extraordinary postures and getting how wonderful it happened. Because yoga is very, very private. It is so that you make yourself a better egoless human being. And in the process, you live ahimsa, not talk about it. When you live ahimsa, your neighbor is benefited, your brother is benefited. You don't have to then ask, am I my brother's keeper? Because when you practice ahimsa, it is a precursor to asana. You get success in asana only when it comes with purity in thought, word, and deed through the self-restraint of ahimsa. Because you see, we've grown up so much in a world where um, it's like dog eats dog, man eats man. Get what I can grab when I can. Even our vocabulary is like that. Even the children here, which I've never heard before, says, let's grab that sandwich. Why? Why don't you just take that sandwich? Why don't you request and ask for a sandwich? Why do you need to grab it? Why do you need to grab a chair, a table? And this is what the Ishavasya Upanishad tells us, that all manifestation is divine. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Everything is enveloped or embraced by the divinity. Everything in nature. The Dharma Shastra says, endure great criticism, insult nobody. Don't pick enmity. Don't go out of your way. Don't return anger with anger. If you're insulted, say a good word. Jesus will say, a soft answer removeth wrath. Atharva Veda says, whatever I dig from the earth, it's a prayer. May that have a quick growth again, O purifier. See the words. May we not cause pain to any living being at any time, including the products of the earth. May we not injure your vitals or your heart. So you see, what the mystics are always telling us is that life is like a mirror. Life is a mirror. There are millions and millions of mirrors around you. Every face is a mirror. Every rock is a mirror. When you smile at somebody, what happens? When you look indifferently at somebody, what happens? How does the other person respond to you? When you look at somebody with a smile but with anger inside, how does that person look to you? So don't be angry with life. If it hurts you, you must have started that karma somewhere, that anger. And the mystics say, change yourself. Don't try to change life. When you change yourself, life does become beautiful. I can promise you that. Life is vast. It goes on and on and on, much before you, and it'll go on even when we are gone. Our lifetime is very short. We are just, yes, we come for an overnight stay and then we are gone. It's gone. Gate, gate, para, gate. We're gone forever. So you have two types of people. One, when in misery, they become victims. They throw the responsibility on someone else. Anyone, any excuse makes you feel better. You're a victim because your family didn't treat you properly, society didn't treat you properly, the government is not enough, doing enough, the economy is a mess. Finally, you even tell God, He hasn't done the right thing. So you tell him, I bought what do you call it? A lottery ticket. Please see that it comes to me. That is, you are giving him an agenda to perform because you feel that he doesn't know anything. You have to tell him. So we have to understand life is not doing something. Life is a mirror. When you stand before a mirror, it reflects you. When Buddha, for example, stands before a mirror, it reflects the Buddha. That is not the mirror's fault that you are not a Buddha. So the Buddha himself will say, change the cause. You are the cause. You, me. If I'm unhappy, I'm the cause. Why? I have the choice of being happy or unhappy. If I choose to be miserable, there's no point looking at other people and saying he's responsible. So now spirituality makes you responsible. Spirituality gives you that freedom of choice. But what is very surprising is people are afraid of freedom. That is why we come up as activists and say, give us freedom. But what do we mean when we say give us freedom or democracy or any of these things associated with freedom? We say, give me the freedom the way I perceive freedom, which is good for me. It need not be good for my brother. That is what freedom actually means to most of us. It doesn't matter if somebody in Africa is hit by a COVID. We look at the papers and say, oh, wow, how terrible. And we say, thank God it hasn't come to us. That sort of thing. So remember, we choose our world. Freedom is a very great responsibility, and we are really, truly afraid of taking responsibility. So Patanjali says, Ahimsa, he says, Pratishtitayam tat sannidhau vairatyagaha. That is, when a yogi has been established in Ahimsa, people in his presence will feel abandonment of enmity. That is, if you are established in Ahimsa, you have a certain vibration which will prevent other people who come even to attack you. And I have seen this happening in my own life with many people around me, where I have seen people who are Ahimsa oriented, people have come to attack them, then they drop their knives and they run away. Somebody very close, it happened to them also. So in India, what we say, we never said much, I will love you. Because when you say that I will love you, you are telling them, come to me, I will lead you to paradise. I'll give you happiness. Now, the first thing is you have to be very realistic. How can you make someone else happy? You might do the best you can, but if you find a person who is very negative, or your best doesn't fit in with that person's best, then that person will not be happy. So you don't say something that is unreal or untrue. Because you deceive yourself when you say something, and you deceive the other person. Nobody can give anyone paradise. Because frustration comes with this sort of a declaration. When I say I love you, I'm creating many dreams. And I'm telling you all these dreams will be yours. Come. But when you speak the truth, you cannot say, I love you. You can say, I will not hurt you. That is all you can say, because you are responsible for hurting somebody or not. That is your responsibility. You can say, I will not be party to hurting you. Now, if the other person is hurt, even when you are quiet, then it is not your responsibility. You are trying your best. You will not hurt somebody. And in doing that, you become more and more a vibrational energy. You know, in the about 5-6 years ago, when there was a little bit of a resentment among the Tibetans in the world, that the Dalai Lama was talking about Ahimsa, so much non-violence. If you look at him, he's nearly always laughing. He's not, giving a rhetoric from the on the mic saying, go and hurt that fellow, see what he has done to us. He's not spurring people. is appealing to the power of their non-violence. So on the BBC, he was quizzed about this, and he said, once you are away, these people might take up arms and get into a fight with the oppressors, because they think they should be trained now itself, because you're talking about ahimsa. And they say it is not appropriate for this period and times. What do you say? And he just smiled and said, that is because they do not know the power of ahimsa. Because ahimsa is an energy, ahimsa is a power. And ahimsa says that if you are established in that vibration, and therefore it's a very good dharma to pursue, then people around you will also be benefited. Not that they shouldn't attack you, but that they will be benefited. Now, you might ask, Jesus was crucified. Didn't he have ahimsa? He said, if you're slapped on one cheek, show the other. Socrates was poisoned. Mahavir was stoned many times and thrown out of villages. Al-Hilaj Mansur was tortured and murdered in a very big way. All for the same reason. Nobody hit back. Buddha, they attempted murder on him many times. Now, why does that happen? If you look at the animal world and the plant world, they are in alignment with nature. They are all going together the way they ought to be. But somewhere human beings got perverted along the way. Why do we say that? Animals are non-violent. If a lion goes and kills a deer, it is only for its food. If it's hungry, it kills the deer and it eats it because that's its food. Once it has eaten and it is full, he will not then go and kill a deer or take its skin and hang it on a tree to show how valiant he was. Or he won't just torture it to see it struggling and suffering, or kill another animal just to tell everybody how smart I am. You won't see this in the animal world at all. But with only human beings are different. The Buddha had a cousin called Devadatta. And Devadatta was a competitor. He tried to get many people to accept him as a Buddha. Buddha means a person who has made a breakthrough of even the buddhi. The buddhi has come into full flowering. It comes to what it is meant to do through the practice of viveka and vairagya. That is discrimination and detachment. So what happened once that he wanted to kill Buddha, who was his cousin, by the way, his mother's brother's son or something like that. He rolled a huge rock down when the Buddha was meditating under a tree. The rock came rolling down, and at the last minute, it changed its path. So people asked the Buddha, what happened? Buddha was untouched. He smiled and he said, even a rock feels more than Devadatta, my brother. Then Devadatta sent a mad elephant to kill him. The elephant came, you know how a mad elephant behaves, completely out of control. People ran in all directions. The Buddha just sat there. It bowed down when it came to the Buddha. And they asked the Buddha, what happened? He said, even a mad elephant is not as mad as my brother Devadatta. And that was it. There is some sanity left even in the elephant. So now coming to physiology itself, there was a research scholar on the human brain, Delgado. He applied electrodes in a bull, the bull's brains, electrodes, and gave it remote control. It is, like how you have a car and you can give it remote control. Now you can do remote control by many things, but then those were early days. And he wanted to show an experiment. So he pressed the anger center in the animal. Immediately, the bull was raging and charging, and people ran in all directions. When he came close to somebody, he pressed another button which cooled down the anger. The bull immediately became calm and lay down. Now, if that can happen with an electrode stimulator, why cannot it happen with a vibration in somebody's mind? It's the same thing that happens with a person who is a Buddha. A deep vibration which was in him, instead of having a electrode and a machine, he had that vibration that could calm down anything that came in his path. So you have the story of the Buddha and Angulimala. Some of you may know the story. Angulimala was a young man who came from a well-to-do family. He was a brilliant student at the Takshila University, what is called Takshashila. Because he was so brilliant, there were jealous students, the others. So those days when the teachers taught, these students gave dakshina, whatever they could. It wasn't like salaries, fees. And they, whatever they could, and the teacher taught not for the sake of giving, but so that the student learns that one has to replace energy with energy. So when the time came, the jealous students poisoned the teacher's mind against him, against I'm sorry, I forgot his name, Angulimala. I just said it and I forgot. So this teacher was carried away by what the student said, and then he said to him, "Give me 1,000 human right hand little fingers from the right hand of 1,000 people." The boy could have gone home and lost his graduation. He knew what he had to do. Instead, he had such a devotion for that guru, he set out to pay the fee. So he started a life of violence and killing just to get those little fingers. Now, whenever he got the fingers, if he kept them on a tree, the birds would come and peck at it, animals would take it. So what he did was to keep them safe. He strung them in a string and put it around his own neck. So it would be always with him. And so people named him Angulimala, which means that a garland of fingers. And he was naturally, people were afraid. They knew that Angulimala was anywhere in the vicinity, they would hide and run and warn each other. So one day the Buddha was walking in a forest. Angulimala saw him. He already had 999 fingers. So this serial killer grabbed this weapon and he thought, no, this man looks good. And he looks quiet also. So if I get one more finger, I can go and give it back to my guru. In the meanwhile, Buddha was walking slowly and serenely. Angulimala ran behind him with great speed and strength. And the Buddha was walking very slow. He could not catch up with the Buddha. This surprised him and frustrated him. So he was exhausted and angry. And he yelled at the Buddha to stop. He said, "Stop, stop," he said. Buddha turned round. There was no anger, no fear in his face. He spoke quietly and directly to Angulimala. What is he doing? The concentration of his whole Ahimsa is flowing through his words to Angulimala. He says, "I have already stopped. Now it is time for you to do the same." What is he saying? I have already stopped hurting, harming. It's time for you to stop. It was his vibration. Angulimala was so struck by the words, he dropped his weapons, followed Buddha back to the monastery, and became a monk himself. Now, the story doesn't end there. The local king was pursuing Angulimala, and a few days down the line, he came with his army to arrest Angulimala. And someone said he is somewhere around here, around the Buddha. You go and pay your respects to the Buddha first, then he will give you the power to kill Angulimala or arrest him. So the king came to pay his respects to Buddha, and Buddha says to him, to the king, what would you do if I told you that Angulimala was sitting along with all these exalted monks here? So the king says, he's just saying it to say nice things to Buddha, but he says if he's really that way, then I would bow before him and give him offerings, but it is impossible. So the Buddha just pointed to a monk sitting among all the other monks. And the king was stunned. He saw Angulimala, he recognized him, and he said, how incredible this is, he said. How is it we could not do by force and weapons, and you were able to do it with neither of them? That is the difference between the vibration of a person of Ahimsa that Patanjali is talking about, a person who lives Ahimsa. And it is said that after a long struggle with himself, Angulimala got rid of the greed and the hatred and the illusion and reached enlightenment. Now, when he reached enlightenment, what do you think he would have thought or said? Didn't those who were jealous of him, his misled teacher, all those people contribute to his enlightenment? That's how he would have seen it. But for them, I would not have met the Buddha. I would just be a brilliant scholar somewhere. Now I'm enlightened. At that moment of enlightenment, if they had come to him, he would have bowed down to them because he had become a Buddha, Angulimala. The difficulty he had earlier was that he had devotion to a wrong guru. But his devotion brought the Paramatma to him in the form of a true guru. Swamiji always used to say, Swami Satyananda, don't worry about the guru. Don't say, is he the right guru? Is he doing the correct thing? Why is he eating bread when he should be eating fruits and fruits? We all have predetermined ideas of what different people should be like, what a doctor should be like, he should never get sick, what a teacher should be like, he should know everything in the world and never make a mistake, what a guru should be like, somebody who will wave the magic wand and then I become enlightened. We all have these three biases. But you see, Swamiji used to say, don't worry about the guru, perfect your discipleship. Angulimala, without realizing, was not just cutting out the fingers of these other people, he was perfecting his discipleship and devotion to a person who had misled him. But even such a person like him, transformation had happened. Why had it happened? Because he had Shraddha. So you'll find many people who are dacoits, thieves. Look at Valmiki. He was a hunter and he was a cruel hunter. And a time came when he started the whole Ramayana because he wept when he saw a bird being killed by another hunter. After he had done Rama Mantra, the Guru Mantra given to him. In fact, you'll be, I don't know if you know, there is a thing called an Angulimala project in the UK jails, which was started many years ago, perhaps 25, 30 or 40 years ago, where they have a chaplain, a counselor, like spiritual counselor in the British jail to give people the benefit of Buddhist understanding. So then what happened? Why so much violence is done to saintly men who have ahimsa? In different ways you can hurt people, the people with Ahimsa. You don't have to beat them or kill them like sometimes happens. You can say nasty things about them. You can kill their reputation. You can say cruel things that you don't know anything about. It's like Chinese whispers. It goes round and you can devastate that person. But you will see that that person by themselves are untouched by it. Why? Because we human beings have killed ourselves. We are dead. Life can only react when something is alive. We have closed ourselves. Even when we meet a Buddha or you meet any guru or a great mystic or a saint or even a good man, we don't feel deeper. It becomes a conversation piece where we meet friends and we say, hey, you know what? The other day I met somebody, it touched me so much. I was so at peace in his presence. It happened with all the people, Ramana Maharshi, Guru Nanak. It is in our samskaras. People went to Swami Satyananda and they would sit there. I have seen myself a lady at a Guru Purnima screaming at him, saying something, and he just sat there and he just smiled. He didn't say anything. And afterwards, she fell at his feet and she started weeping. So you can feel this deep communion with the Guru only when you realize that you have the same quality in yourself. That is that capacity to love, that capacity not to react, that capacity of divinity, a potential. If you don't feel the divinity in yourself, you find it impossible to see it in somebody else. You then just think it's a nice person. Okay, here's my Guru, and then let me keep his photo. And every time I'm surprised when a WhatsApp message, sometimes I do send WhatsApp messages saying something very nice, and somebody will say, I'm so overwhelmed. And I think to myself, 30 years, 40 years you were with a Guru. And weren't you overwhelmed then that you are saying it as if it's something new that is happening to you? Because you know what is happening? It becomes a habit of the mind, not the soul. It becomes a habit of the mind to say, I'm overwhelmed or I'm deeply touched. Now, if you were deeply touched, you would be a Peter. Simon Peter, he was fishing, he couldn't get the fish. And Jesus was just walking along. He said to Simon, put your net on the other side. It was evening, the man was tired. He put his net on the other side and it was filled with fish. And he was amazed. How did this man just say, cast your net on the other side? It got filled. And Jesus looked at him and he just gestured to him, follow me. He left the net and everything and he just followed him. No, that doesn't mean that I'm saying drop your family, drop your profession and follow somebody. All I'm saying is follow your soul. Your soul is divine. Your soul is a part of divinity. Your soul is a part of your Guru. The natural law doesn't function in us like it does in animals and plants because we have become unnatural. We have had centuries of arrogance, and because of this arrogance, we have conditioned ourselves to think that all creation is for us to master, to control, to make into slaves for our comfort. Ahimsa, that's called. That is why very often people are very afraid of coming near a true saint or a new Guru. They would go reading up WhatsApp about all that he is, talk to some people and then assess and analyze why the other person is saying it's good or it's not good. And that's very silly because we don't know. Imagine if you're trying to analyze the COVID virus, unless you're a research person working with viruses all your life, what do you know? You only know common gossip. And it's the same when you go to a person of a Gurutvam who has a Guru personality, and you're looking at him and you're discussing it with people who know who've gone there. What did you feel? What did I feel? And you're trying to analyze. So when you analyze, when you go there near the Guru, a true Guru, in his presence there is a magnetic force because he is aligned with the Supreme. That is why you say Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma. Do you know what you say? Guru is verily, truly the supreme consciousness. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. To that Guru I bow my head. He is not the body that you are looking at. His consciousness at the time of meeting you and giving you something specific to do. At that time, it is the divine coming and waking up the divine in you. But we are afraid, and many people will go halfway, or they will drop midway because they feel weak and vulnerable. When you love somebody, you do become very vulnerable. That other person has, you are in that other person's force field. You want to say that. If you go to a market and you gather all fixed attitudes about the Guru, then the mirror does not, it's full of, it doesn't show you yourself, your face, it shows you the dust. Removing this dust is Shraddha. Even animals and plants understand it. That is why the people tree in Bodh Gaya, some of you have come with me to Bodh Gaya, it is still sacred because it's the only living witness to one of the greatest happenings in history of the world, when Siddhartha became transformed into Buddha. The mind with its tiny ideologies, concepts, systems, philosophies is a dead mind. If it is alive, it is constantly being a witness. It is constantly, life is alive, you see. It is constantly adapting and adjusting to different things around. You cannot have one same ideology for everything in life from the beginning to the end, because life is a prana. Life is prana. Prana is a changing, fluid situation. So to feel a spiritual connection, you have to be free. And when a yogi is firmly established in Ahimsa, Patanjali says, other people around abandon their enmity to that person. Some of you will realize when you have gone through in the presence of your Guru, suddenly a love arises. No visible reason. It is not to him, it is not to her, it is not to the Guru. Just a feeling of being loved. And that is just the way such a person like a Guru functions. You move in his energy field and you are never the same again. And some people will say, why is it that people are flocking to that person? Because they are hypnotized. Nobody hypnotizes. In their presence, the mind is soothed. It becomes still and silent. Your inner talk stops. Your Atma comes to the front. If you've thought of your Atma soul, it comes into your body at a specific time when you are created. And then it watches the body and the mind go through its karmic happenings, events, sadness, happiness, up, down, everything. And when the time is right, the Atma leaves the body and goes up. It is sitting there witnessing and being part of everything, but it is not involved. So unnoticed, it's like a lotus. It lives in the water, but it's not touched by the water. Because in their presence, in the presence of such people who are filled with Ahimsa, the whole structure that is within you changes. That is what satsang means. To be in the company of somebody who has attained the truth and does not see you different from himself. So you'll see in the before the night before Jesus was crucified, he breaks bread and he gives it to the disciples and he says, eat this bread, it is me. So when a master touches bread, you wonder, why does he say it is me? Because that is why we do Naivedyam when you keep your food, offer it to the divine, and then you eat it in your homes. When a divine vibration touches your food, that food becomes sacred. So when Jesus touched the bread became sacred. Why was it sacred? Because it absorbed his vibrations. When you eat that bread, you are nourished by his vibrations. That is why Jesus earlier said, because he knew man does not live by bread alone, but by every word, every vibration that comes from the supreme divine, not from me. The divine. That's what he's talking about. He's not saying, I'm sacred, come and take what I'm giving you. Shastra says to be in the presence of such a person, any person like that, is to be in his womb. That is, you are surrounded by him. Ishavasya Upanishad says, you are enveloped by him. You are in his womb. He becomes your Lokamata, the mother of all creations. You are being transmuted, transformed. A new you is being born. That is why it's called the what do you call it? Tvija, the second birth, born again, twice born. First time you are born, your body is born from your father and your mother. The second time birth is from your guru. Your soul is born again in a situation that you have now the capacity to be able to follow it and see it. That is why it's called darshan, atma darshan. Just being in the presence is enough. Such a person, they don't want to be made somebody special. They don't want to get, if you see Swami Niranjan last year or year before last, he got a Padma Bhushan. And he just dedicated it to the devotees, to the people who are, and to his guru. He wasn't terribly excited about it, but because he has been in the presence of his guru, and for him that was enough. He did not need anything else. And when you are in the presence of such a master, you don't need anything else. You feel just sitting there and you don't have to do anything. No need to ask questions. Questioning is the mind. You just be in the presence, and being in the presence of truth. It is to live and to be the truth, not to talk about the truth only, to be naked, to be authentic, no falseness inside. You don't have to put on an act before a guru. You don't have to put on an act before. Where is the guru? Not only in your heart. When you say, Guru Sakshat Parabrahman, your guru is in the whole universe. Every guru is the form of your guru. He is also inside you. So you don't need to put on a facade. You don't have to paint yourself into looking humble or looking loving, generous, or speaking about nice things or putting up these things on WhatsApp. You don't need any of that. You are just being filled and filled and filled. And that itself is sufficient unto itself. You will get this feeling of constantly being taken care of, sustained, and merging with the essence. And then what happens? The next thing, that essence works through you. This is what Krishna tells Arjuna. You are not killing anybody. You are not creating anybody. The Supreme does it. You are only the instrument. Nimitta matram. The essence works through you. The whole Supreme works through you. Things happen on the surface. You may be good, you may be bad, you may be in relation with the world, you may be married, you may not be married, you might have 20 divorces behind you, you might have fought with somebody. None of those matters. But deep, this is your mind and the body, which is made by the Pancha Mahabhutas, and they are playing out a role that you call karmic role, so that you learn something from it. But actually, you are the essence. You are divinity deep down. And when you are divinity, when you are deep down godly, then you are not worried about how to prevent the other person from reaching first, how to be divine first, what to do, what not to do. Should I eat cabbage today? Can I do Naivedyam at 10 o'clock? all the sort of doubts need not come to you at all, because these are rituals so that you reach divinity. Once you realize that that divine being, that guru, is within you, then you don't have to be in the physical presence of that being. You become Ahimsa. You become divine. That's why the Ishavasya Upanishad says, Tatta ko moha kashokaha ekatvam anupashyate. That is, everything you realize is one, the same essence in everything. That is why when the Gopikas saw Krishna, they didn't see him as a man that they can get sensual delight from. They saw him as a Parabrahman. And so he gave them the privilege of being with him in the Rasa Leela. What is the Rasa Leela? Why is it called so? Because Raso Vaisaha. He alone is the Rasa. Rasa means the essence. He is the essence of everything. So they enjoyed themselves in the bliss of that essence. So when you know that everything is one earth, when we say it all the time, where is there anything other than you? When you know this, how can raga and dvesha happen? How can you be attracted or repulsed by anything? Then the ahimsa within you becomes spontaneous. And you realize that the deadliest virtue is ego. This is told to me by my guru. The deadliest virus, not virtue, I'm sorry. The deadliest virus is the ego, which prevents you from forgiveness and apologies for another human being. So before we go on and on about the COVID virus, it would be good if we could remove that virus in ourselves, which says that we are, what would you say, invincible. If we have more money, if we have a position, if we have charisma, if we belong to a certain community, because of the herd mentality, we think we are safe. If we are generous, if we do good things, then we are protected because of our efforts. So once we realize that, and we can all realize it, this is what my guru used to say, just hold your nose for a minute. I've told you this before also. Just hold your nose for a minute and take in your breath, hold your nose and wait for as long as you can and see what happens. Try it right now. At the end, when your lungs look like they're going to burst, the air rushes in, right? In other words, we are beggars. Somebody sent me a WhatsApp the other day in which a woman is shouting, in the name of love, I will not beg anybody. First of all, when in the name of love, you don't beg. Second, you give. You want to give more than ask. And the second thing is that when you look at life, you realize how there are many, many creations that come before you and live longer than you. If you see some of the trees, they've been there in your great grandfather's time, and they will continue being there much after your great grandchildren are gone. So why their stay is different? The time of their life is much longer than our lives. So how do we say that we are in control? What do we take when we go at all? The only thing we do is to make a parody of ourselves by throwing our wealth, our beauty, our power in the face of other people and saying, whether you say it or not, look, I'm better than you. And that's what our mirror is saying every day when we look at it and we look at our bodies and we say, this is me, I'm much better, I'm fitter than the other person, I have so many back, abdomen, whatever you say that. Or, I have such and such a figure, I have a complexion that is flawless. And look at this whole drama that is going on, that some other people are laughing all the way to the bank, because some people identify their body with who they are. Nothing wrong with the body. It's a very good instrument. It's a very good servant. And the body is telling you continuously, look, you are not going to look the same tomorrow as you look today. So why are you wasting your time? Search for that which is permanent within. Now, when you're thinking of such a thing, then you ask yourself, suppose something negative comes in my mind. What do I do? Because I have been used to this. I am helpless. I am not perfect. I have been used to being suspicious. I'm used to thinking I need to protect myself by these various techniques because they have become my vasanas for centuries and centuries, genetic tool almost, to think that if you don't get up and do something, things will go wrong with you, with your family, with your nation, with the world at large. That is what activism is about. But here we are talking about not activism, we are talking about a situation where you accept your helplessness. Yes, I am helpless. But teach me, Lord, to be the way you are with Ahimsa. So when something negative comes in your mind, start chanting your Guru mantra or any mantra. If you don't have a Guru mantra, chant any mantra. You can even try it in the class or after. When you chant your Guru mantra, you will not be thinking about anything else at that time. You can't think. In the beginning, you start doing it very enthusiastically. If you do it for a few hours at a stretch, then towards the end, it starts getting lower and lower in energy. And then other thoughts come to your mind. Now, why does that come? Because prana, abhyasa and prana. Patanjali says, you must constantly practice. This is the sadhana. Go on practicing when you feel any negativity. When you see that something is coming to demoralize you, start chanting your mantra, not mechanically, with a great love for the mantra, because the mantra is a living presence. It's a living presence of the mantra devata. And it's also a living presence of the Guru who initiated you. Start from there, go on for some time until you feel things are, you're moved past that negativity. And the mantra then has the capacity to dissolve the negativity. And when it dissolves the negativity, slowly, slowly, your karmas and your vasanas are being dissolved. And you're moving towards chitta shuddhi or purification of the body and mind. And your soul is suddenly free to fly. So Hari Om Tat Sat. Today I thankfully finished it in time. So I haven't tortured you by keeping you a little longer, but just contemplate on it. What do we really have? We have our souls. At one level, we are like beggars. We don't even have our breath. But at another level, we are the children of the most supreme power in the universe. And actualize it. Make it your abhyasa. Don't just say it as a word. Try it out. If you feel sad, if you feel angry, if you feel upset, before jumping into the fray and reacting to something, just start chanting your Guru mantra. Go on chanting it, and slowly this anger will fade away. This thing will dissolve. Trust your mantra, and when you do this, you will also see that slowly, slowly your capacity to become angry is going down, and your capacity to forgive and be compassionate and learn to love truly. The divine love, not the sensual love or the love of the world, which is of a higher vibration, will, like a Buddha, you will see it flowing out of you, loving you also and everybody else. So you have to have faith in any pieces that you are set out to explore. If you are trying to explore yoga, you start with Ahimsa. And Ahimsa, when you paramo dharmaha, when you do it, you have to not explore it from the interpretations of commentators. You have to practice yourself. Once a day is enough. If 20 times you are used to getting angry, try it once. with your Guru Mantra and see if you can have Indriya Nigraha, restraint of the senses, not open your mouth and hit out at somebody. When you can do that once, you will know that that once was more powerful than 20 times. Do that as a practice again and again and again, and you'll realize how much the God within you was remaining asleep and wanted to be awakened and said, look inwards, I'm here, I'm here. So Hari Om Tat Sat, you're all Arya Putras, Arya Putris. Arya means one who is fit to be worshipped. So trust in the goodness within you, the divine within you, and continue your practice, whatever you are doing. Don't allow the world to make you conditioned to thinking that you're not good enough and therefore you have to do some things. You're beautiful in your own right. You're loved as you are. You don't have to be something or somebody else. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hari Om, Sanji. Hari Om. Thank you.
We chant Om 3 times. Send out the love that we feel to the whole world. We don't discriminate. We are sending it.
Online ordering the food instead of preparing in the kitchen. So it is required, but not so much. So our stress on service can go down or it can go up, but agriculture has to. Agriculture is like our home food. Will we close our kitchen because we started earning more money? I don't think we don't close our kitchen. Still, kitchen is very importance. Home food has an importance. So I'm relating that. Therefore, the stress has to be given agriculture industry, and service industry. But it's not easy easier to say, but not easy to compositely manage as a country. So the demand and supply is the one which makes the perfect economy. And matching the demand and supply, you can see.
Loka samasta
Bhavantu.
Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.